from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back. We had a long weekend this week. It was President's Day, so we're back, we're live, and we're taking calls tonight. If you want to give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez is the phone number. And my hope is that you had a good President's Day weekend and you had some time off. Maybe if you did, great. If you didn't, hope you're getting that money and a little time and a half, a little overtime, all that good stuff. But a few things have happened. I'm not sure if we talked about Navalny getting offed, right? I think that's the word on the street, that he got whacked by Putin. This is Alexei Navalny, the dissident of Putin, who tried to poison him. He was out of the country, came back, put him in jail. He's in Siberia. And then voila, now the guy's gone. His widow's out there saying that he was murdered by Putin. Listen, I'm not surprised in the least if that was in fact the case. But I do realize that every now and again, we as people are flawed. And as flawed people, you sometimes have folks in the United States that will be totally willing to make Putin even worse than he is. You know what I mean? Like the Lieutenant Colonel was describing to us the other day from Space Force, right? He was telling us about how the folks on the Intelligence Committee in Congress were sounding the alarm on something that was really, really big and something that was going bananas and berserk. But in reality, it was something that had been going on all along. And yeah, so Putin is a bad guy, but that wasn't something he did right now. And every now and again, for the benefit of those in the intelligence community and the military-industrial complex, for whatever reason, they will overhype a bad guy to get to their political end. And I get it. I totally get that. So I understand how these happen. These things happen. So listen, I wouldn't be surprised if Putin did it. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else did it to blame Putin. Just wouldn't surprise me in the least. But now Russia has issued an arrest warrant for the brother. So if they're arresting the brother, then it seems to me that they probably think this guy did something. Unless they're trying to arrest the brother for killing him while he was in jail. I mean, I just don't get the logic there. We'll get into that later. But a couple of interesting headlines. There's a few things going on here, right? A little bit later, we're going to talk with a political and crisis communications expert that knows all about what's going on. We've spoken with a lot of her clients on this program because ultimately the media is always trying to control the narrative. But Trump really kind of understands how to get ahead of it, and that's why they can't help but cover him, because he knows how to get exactly under their skin. So we're going to chat a little bit about that later. Now, we're also going to talk about this organization that has been formed to counter the World Economic Forum. Yuval Harari and Klaus Schwab. And I don't even like to mention these guys by name, honestly, because I'm not fans. I'm not a fan of their work. These guys are they're real-life Dr. Evils. However, I will say this. The work that they do is taken seriously by a lot of governments, and therefore we have to pay attention to it. So we're going to have a listen to what our guest is going to talk about with respect to countering the initiative that comes out of Davos every year. And that's in the second half of the second hour. But right after this, I want to talk to somebody. Listen to this story. Listen, this is a remarkable story. This young man is the only one of his siblings that was not born crack addicted. And the reason he wasn't born addicted to crack is because his mother gave birth to him while she was in prison. Had it not been for her doing time, she might have been getting high, and he may also have been born addicted to crack. What a story. This guy not only was able to turn his life around, but that of his family members. And he's done some amazing work in a very difficult area, coming out of the Bronx, New York, ending up in Newark, New Jersey, two areas that are definitely known for their toughness. And he was able to thrive and survive. So I want to talk a little bit about him. His name is Pablo, and I'm going to introduce him to you in a little bit. What a remarkable story. But I want to give you a couple of headlines, right? Because there's a couple of headlines out there. 70% of the largest cities in the United States are on the verge of bankruptcy. Isn't that something? And then you've got a little more drama in Russia. Maybe we'll talk about that later on tonight. Some talk on 2024. We'll do that a little bit later as well. Secretary of State Blinken scolded his staffers for using words like manpower. How dare you? How dare you? And we have more drama from Funny Willis. The judge is now questioning the credibility of Funny Willis's dad, who went and gave a whole soliloquy on why you got to use cash, because, if you're not using cash, it could be dangerous. Now, listen, I'm a big supporter of cash. I think cash is great. We should always use cash. We should have lots of cash. Everybody should take cash. But the reality is we don't always have that available. So it makes a lot of sense. And I get it. But Funny Willis, good old Funny Willis, she even the folks on the left have now been kind of commenting as of late that she may, in fact, not be the person for this case, and that she might be, forced to recuse herself. I don't know if that's the case or not. I believe she should never have done this from the beginning. But I don't know what the outcome is going to be. But I can only hope that that is a part of what we're going to see. So we'll talk a little Funny Willis a little bit later on as well. But interesting stuff that I want to share with you tonight. We've got a story from about a month ago about a racehorse testing positive for meth. I definitely want to share that with you because I had it on my list and I didn't, and there's something I want to add to it. We have the Houthi rebels. They've also shot down a U.S. combat drone. We're going to get into that a little bit as well. And there's a few more things on the Russia front. There seems to be a lot of things going on with Russia. So stick with me, folks. Welcome back from the long weekend. I'm here with you. I'm going to take a sip of coffee during the break and get ready to talk with my buddy Pablo Pizarro. And Pablo is, again, what a remarkable story of turning his life around and really being a light in darkness for so many people. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. Rich Valdez, keeping you company till 1 a.m. And I want to introduce everybody that's listening from New York all the way to Alaska. We're on a lot of stations, and we reach a lot of people. And this is a message that I think needs to reach absolutely everybody. So pay attention to this story. And it's a name I think you're going to remember. Pablo Pizarro. Pablo Pizarro is, today he's a reverend. He's a pastor of a church in Newark, New Jersey. But he started out in the Bronx, New York. And as I mentioned earlier, the only one of his siblings that wasn't born addicted to crack cocaine. And the saving grace there was that he was born while his mother was in prison. That's why he wasn't addicted to crack cocaine. Now, that's just one small part of a very, very interesting and powerful story. And I want to take it right from the beginning and then bring it straight to where it is in present day, because it's not about him. It's really about how you get through these challenges. And I think all of us face those challenges. So help me welcome Pastor Pablo Pizarro. Welcome, sir.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me, Rich. It's great being here.
You bet, brother. So listen to this. I'm excited to read your brand new book. It's called If You Only Knew. It's out today on Amazon. If anybody listening, make sure you go to Amazon.com and get a copy for yourself and one to give away, because I think this is something that's really going to inspire people. But Pastor Pablo Pizarro, let's walk through this, right? You're born in the Bronx, and you're facing many challenges, right? You have parents that are dealing with certain demons. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, Rich. Well, as you said, I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, Bronx River Projects, to be exact, 1420 Bronx River Avenue. And as you mentioned, my story is one of many, I believe, in the inner city, where my parents were both addicted to crack and cocaine. My father particularly was an alcoholic as well. And it's a rough story because my mother, since she was 8 years old, was molested by her own father. They did not believe her. Her father didn't believe her. So she was put in a home. And when she turned 17 years of age, she was let go of that foster home, and she turned to drugs and took her pain. And from that moment, it was a rough life. She met my father. He was a boxer, professional boxer. I say in my book that he chose to practice on her. He would beat on her. We would see domestic violence that was prevalent in our home. And I am one of 13 children. My mother lost 13 children, miscarried 13 children, because when they would get high or drunk together, my father would beat on her, and he would hit her, or they would get high and do drugs. And so therefore, it was rough. It was rough, and she lost 13 kids. But as you said in your opening, out of the 13 children, 3 were able to be born. My oldest sister and my youngest brother, and I being the middle child. And like you said in your opening statement there, the reason I wasn't born addicted to drugs, crack, or cocaine is because my mother was incarcerated for 9 months. And that's where I say God's hand was on me, because I was born in prison. But he had chosen me for this time so that I can tell everybody of the story in which I'm, writing about and telling everybody today. So, yeah, that my mom and dad were very heavily into drugs and cocaine and addiction, and we saw it. I seen my father put a fork to my mother's eardrums and blow her eardrums. I seen a bat to her left knee, and to this day she suffers from that. I also, I seen her head shoved into a refrigerator, cracked open, had stitches, and I was only 10, 11 years old, seeing all this. But prior to that, my grandmother has sent us to church, and that's my mother's mother, send us to church. And, my parents were in their drugs, doing their thing. And all of a sudden, at that church, I prayed. And I said, if God is real, please, I'm asking that you pray for my mother and my father, that they will be delivered from this horrible addiction. And our, situation at home was just a nightmare. And the pastor prayed. And as soon as I got home, I promise you, my grandmother was going to put us in a foster home because she couldn't take care of us. But when we prayed in that church, I got home that night, and my grandmother was crying, and my grandmother said, I just can't take you guys and turn you into the foster care system. I looked up to the ceiling or heaven, and I said, wow, prayer works. And I made a prayer promise to God in that church. I said, if you heal my parents from this horrible addiction, I will tell the world of who God is. Well, fast forward 2024, I'm fulfilling my end of the bargain because my mom is healed and cleaned 25 years from drug and cocaine.
Wow. Amen.
Yeah. And so there's a lot to the story. It's in the book, but that's why I choose to go to the inner cities and schools, and I've worked in many endeavors trying to get the story out. It's called If You Only Knew. Yeah.
Folks, you got to get a copy of the brand new book, If You Only Knew, by Pastor Pablo Pizarro. I definitely recommend getting 2 copies, one for yourself, one for somebody else to give away as a gift. Again, the book is called If You Only Knew. It's available on Amazon, or just go to Pablo Pizarro, that's Pizarro with 2 R's, .com, PabloPizarro.com. Now, Pastor Pablo, I want to continue hearing about the story that different parts of what you've written about in the book. But we have about a minute and a half before we have to take the first break. And I want to get a sense of what it was like dealing with, just witnessing that type of abuse. I'm guessing as a child, witnessing that, you were scared. But I guess after seeing it enough times, it becomes normal, or no?
Yeah, I think that it does become normal. And we have many kids. Today I launched the book, and I was in Newark talking about that. Many principals and school administrators were present. And I said that many of our kids go to school traumatized. There's a chapter in my book called Nightmares in My Grandmother's House, because I lived in the projects of Bronx River Projects in New York, by the way, where hip hop was born. And I was in those projects where I would hear guns, bullets flying, and just next door, I had a neighbor whose son used to beat on her, and then I had my parents fighting, and drugs, empty beer bottles. It was a nightmare. It really was, and I couldn't sleep sometimes. Yet I have to go to school at 8 a.m, and I was probably malnourished, not eating well, not sleeping well. How do you focus in school? How do you attend classes? How do you pass a test, do your homework? And so I didn't have the upbringing that you needed. So I was numb to it, and I was a child with bad behavior. So sometimes we see these kids with bad behaviors, and we see them going through trials and tribulations in school, but we wonder what's their home life like. And I call it Nightmares in My Grandmother's House, because that's where we lived, and there was just fighting and turmoil. And but we can learn from this how we have to have a safe haven for our kids, and no 8-year-old or 11-year-old or 13-year-old should be growing up in this environment. So yeah, to answer your question, I was numb. It was tough. We grow up, we want to fight, we want to bully people, because it is our reaction. I was almost like, since 8 years old, I was in fight or flight mode. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I bet that's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
When we come back, I want you to go ahead.
Yeah. It was tragic, but I'm just thankful that we're here to tell the story.
Yeah, and when we come back from the break, I want to hear a little bit more about how you got through that, because I think so many people that, in different walks of life, whatever they do, right? Most people are tuning in to listen about politics and the news of the day, but the reality is this is the news of the day. Lamentably, right now, we're in a situation where the economy in our country is not hitting rock bottom, but it's definitely not where it once was. And people are suffering, and there's always a group of people that are suffering. And I think they're looking forward to hearing a message of hope. So I'm looking forward to you sharing how you came out from those dark times when we come back. Folks, we're on with Pastor Pablo Pizarro. That's PabloPizarro.com. If you want to get a copy of the book, I recommend getting 2 copies. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. It's America at Night with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. We continue our conversation with Pastor Pablo Pizarro. He is the author of the brand new book, If You Only Knew, explaining to us how prayer changed his life as a young man. The only one of his siblings born sober, right? Not addicted to crack cocaine. While that happened because he was born outside of the free world in a prison system. And that's why he was not addicted. I mean, just quite a remarkable story to show you how when there's a plan for your life, it's going to happen no matter what the circumstance. And describing how difficult it was to watch the violence between his parents, who were struggling with their own addictions and fighting with one another. And Pastor Pablo, as a kid, you become numb. You see all of this stuff, and then does it just go away one day? Do you just pray and it stops? Do you have to? Is there a healing time? How did it work for you?
Yeah, Rich. Well, when we have this title, the book that we have is called "If You Only Knew." A lot of people sit there and they ask you, "Hey, man, how do you have what you have? You're a good speaker, you're a pastor, you're an author, you're a consultant, you have this." They see what you have on the outside, right? On the superficial side, and it's like a social media world. You see the good things. Right, that's why we said it's
the highlight reel.
Yeah, the highlight reel. So, and that's why we say if you only knew, because it took more than just prayer. It was the best thing. It's what helped me. A prayer of an 8-year-old boy that saved me, but it's going to take sometimes counseling. It's going to take resources. It's going to take changing your life, taking the first step. So I want to tell everybody listening today that as an 8-year-old boy, all the way probably up to 15 or 16, I witnessed violence and drug addiction and just utter chaos in my house. But that also transfers with you when you become a young man or you're married.
Right. It stays like trauma in your life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so many people in our inner cities right now are walking around traumatized, and they don't even know it. They witness murders, and their parents are going through chaos just like I was. So to answer your question, it was prayer. Prayer started everything. It was the fire starter or the kickstart. And when you pray, be careful when you pray, because you just might get what you're praying for. And I ask God, because we pray, hey, take away my mom and dad from the prison system or drug addiction. And he does it. But what happens after that? They're going to have to get a job. They're going to have to rehabilitate because all they were doing was selling drugs before in the streets, or that's how they made their living. But now they're going to have to do it the right way. So prayer can change things, but it comes, there's a scripture in the word that tells us that faith without works is dead. So I had to put in work as a young man as myself, because I thought that what was going on in my house was normal. And when I got married, I started to see like, hey, that's not normal. This is not how you speak to your wife or treat your children. Just because we saw it at home, we can't normalize these things. So,
what was that like? Like, how did you get that wake-up call? Did she tell you, hey, bro, chill? Or did you just notice that, that it wasn't right? Because I feel like a lot of people born in different situations. I myself didn't have the brightest upbringing. It wasn't a bad childhood, in my opinion, but there was some dark moments, and I didn't. Yeah. It took me till I was in my 30s to realize, oh, you didn't grow up like that. Like, you people don't yell at each other for everything. and it was just an interesting moment for me. What was it like for you?
Yeah, some may call it an epiphany, a wake-up moment. When you realize, there's a couple of things, Rich, when I grew up, and I said this today on my book release, and it's this, that I grew up seeing my mom with a fork to her ear. Her eardrum was blown out. There was blood profusely coming out. There's a left knee where I can see her bone coming out of her knee. And, I would come to her to counsel her and comfort her. Hey, Mom, what's wrong? And I would say things like, Mom, why don't you leave him? And you know what she would say, Rich? She would say, because I love him. So I grew up saying, well, if that's love, then I don't want to ever be in love.
I'm good. Right.
Yeah, I'm good. And so it carried on with me even when I got married. And I've only been married to one woman. I've only dated one woman. But I've seen it in my behaviors and my attitudes. And you're right. Sometimes he would say, hey, you're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to treat me like that. And then I would see it rear its ugly head, maybe even how I dealt with my son and with anger, or my daughter. And I have a son and a daughter. So, yeah, you got to get counseling. And, yeah, therapy is okay. And I come from a Latino background. So counseling for us is what we call El Cuco, which is the scary monster. But you have to talk these things out the way we're doing today. We have to have healthy discussions. And again, it is all rooted in faith. The book is about faith. If you only knew what it took to get where I'm at, if you only knew how I can survive a marriage, if you only knew how I survived trauma, you can put the only if you knew and answer that at the end. And that's how I survived that. And that's how I had the wake-up call when I started to see, hey, I'm not going to be the way my father and my mother was. I cannot do that. And there have been times where I wanted to raise my hand or yell and say, hey, remember what that led to. And so we have tried to right those wrongs.
Amen to that, brother. Folks, we're on with Pastor Pablo Pizarro. He is the author of the brand new book, If You Only Knew. Check out the website for the book. It's Pablo Pizarro, Pizarro, Pablo Pizarro. Or you could just search for it on Amazon.com, If You Only Knew by Pablo Pizarro. And I recommend getting a copy of the book. And straight ahead, we're going to wrap up this conversation. You could hear where he is now, how he got to that journey. He's pastoring one of the largest churches in Newark, New Jersey, a wonderful congregation. I've been to the church. It's a remarkable ministry to the community. And it's really not a story about him, like I said. It's a story about how it's impressed upon the lives of so many in that community. And I want you to hear a little bit about that as well, again, because it's quite a journey. And an impressive one at that. Folks, stick around. We're coming right back with Pastor Pablo Pizarro.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, welcome back, America. And we're continuing our discussion with Pastor Pablo Pizarro. And Pastor Pablo, we talked about how you were born, the only one not addicted to crack cocaine because you were born in jail. Then we talked about how you got through life, starting to realize that, oh my gosh, we can't just go busting kneecaps and stabbing eardrums and doing the crazy that you grew up around. And fast forward to today, where you're a consultant to the city of Newark, New Jersey. You have one of the largest churches in the city of Newark, as far as I know, one that's really involved in its community and has quite a legacy, in and of itself. And how do you get from there to writing this book that is sure to be a bestseller? How do you get from being born in the projects and going through all of that adversity to getting to here? What was that journey like?
Yeah, Rich, one day I'm sitting in the pews of a church celebrating my 5th year anniversary as a pastor. Little church at the time, and my mentor, my pastor, Pastor Carmelo Roman, he comes and he preaches, and he's preaching similar to my journey. He's just saying, hey, listen, God has done great things, and there are times that we should just sit and reflect. There's power in reflection, and we ought to think to ourselves, if you only knew. There goes the title. When he said that, it's just like it hit me, and I felt, hey, that's going to be the name of my next book, If You Only Knew. And I'm going to write this, not my next book, my only book, my first book. And I started to write and chronicle the story. The intention of this book was not to be another church book or religious book. It was to share with young adults, with teenagers, with older folks, grandmas and granddads, dads and moms, all across the board, all of ages, to share with them how we can overcome challenges, especially in the inner city, which is where I pastor now in Newark, Jersey. 311,000 folks live there, people, and it's the biggest city. It's one of the largest cities in New Jersey, if not the largest. And so I figured I have to put this story out and let everyone know that if I overcame and if I was able to come out alive from the hood, then so can they. And so I started to join speaking teams with the mayor, who started a program called My Brother's Keeper. And we would go to schools, he would bring 4 or 5 men that would share stories. And I began to share the stories that I was, writing down. And I can see these high school kids gravitating towards me, young middle school kids gravitating towards me and wanting to ask me questions. And I'm like, okay, this is going to create a movement. And it sure did. I started and still do. I speak at high schools. I speak at middle schools. I speak at juvenile detention centers, facilities, men's facility, women's facilities. After all, you'll read in my book, that's where I was able to preach to my own mother when she was in prison. And so I've taken a liking to the inner city. I go into the roughest neighborhoods currently right now. So to answer your question, when you say, how do you get there? And yes, my church, to the glory of God, is one of the largest churches in our city, but not because we've been inward focused, but because I've taken all the challenges we went through, and I want to be able to go out there and reach those little Pablos. I want to reach those folks that are going through a crime-ridden home or violence-ridden home. And so we go to the roughest neighborhoods, Rich, and we bring them hot dogs, hamburgers, ice cream trucks. We give them groceries, and this is all on the dime of the church. We believe in giving back, so we're outwardly focused. And we've really seen a movement out of this. So we go into the schools, we go into the roughest neighborhoods, to the projects, and it's just not charity work. It's heart work. We stick with them. We don't just go give them a bag of groceries and we're gone. We come and revisit them, and we come and hang out with them. I mean, I take pictures of them, and I love up on them. We try to give them backpacks. I mean, we stick with them. And we've seen the results. To this day, I have a group that I mentor, about 20 young adults. I'm talking about 19 through 27. They're cops, EMS workers, social workers. They're in college, universities, and we started with them when they were 14, and they're still with me. Today, they were in that room celebrating this accomplishment of You Only Knew. So that is what has given us great growth in the city of Newark, in the North Ward, and we travel throughout the whole city just loving up on people because it's what we need in times of that. In your opening statement, you said it. You said we are living in a moment where the economy is not the best. So how do we combat that? Well, I think it takes a village. That's the proverbial axiom, right? It takes a village.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to be a church, let's get out of the 4 walls of the church. Let's just not be segregated on a Sunday from, 8 to 11. Every church is closed in their 4 walls. No, let's get out. Let's go reach the little Pablos whose parents are drug addicts or are alcoholics, or you see domestic violence. So that's why I stand up for these things. I try to go parent-teachers meetings because I've seen that a lot of my parents like mine never went to those meetings. So I show up and I encourage them. I go to graduations that are not even my children's, my kids. I show up for them. I've done events where you've seen me. I've done, showing kids how to tie their tie. I just want to be there for someone the way someone was there for me, when I needed it. There was community men that were there. So I just want to give back and love up on these children. So that's why we're doing what we do, and we're successful at it. First, thank God, and then to the movement that we've created in going into the schools and communities.
If You Only Knew, that's the name of the book by Pastor Pablo Pizarro, and really is a moving story. Again, I urge you to check out the website, pablopizarro.com. That's Pizarro with 2 R's. And Pastor Pablo, if people want to follow you on social media, learn more about your work in Newark, learn more about your ministry, bring you to speak at their church, how do they reach you?
Yeah, so if you look me up right now on Instagram, it'll be It's Pastor Pablo. That's my handle. It's Pastor Pablo. You'll find me there. If you want to go on Facebook, you can look up Rev.Pablo Pizarro, and you can follow me there as well. And as well, I'm X now, Rev.Pablo Pizarro.
Outstanding. Keep up the great work. Thanks for making time to be with us tonight. I appreciate it. You bet. Godspeed. Amen.
All right. God bless.
All right. And folks, we're coming back with the rest of the news of the day. We're going to talk about what's going on in Washington, all of the crazy that's going on there, your calls, of course, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So I'm looking at this story here. Listen to this. 70% of the largest U.S. cities are on the verge of bankruptcy. February 20th. That's today. Who knew, right? They say they don't have enough money to pay their bills in fiscal year 2023. So going into 2024. According to an accounting by Truth and an analysis, by Truth and Accounting, the financial reports, 53 out of 75 big cities, the biggest cities, did not have enough money to pay all of their bills. Truth in Accounting found that 75 of the largest cities in the U.S. had $307 billion worth of assets available to pay bills, but their debt totaled nearly $600 billion, just short of it, at $595. Now, this analysis from TIA also noted that pensions and health care accounted for the majority of the debt. Look at that. And I can tell you, I don't know about every state, but I know that in New Jersey, that was a big deal. And this is the problem when you have tax and spend. And you can tax and save, right? If you can tax and do the right thing, that might work for a while until people get tired of, getting overtaxed. But when it's tax and spend and you don't really pay your bills, then you've got a problem. And we had this problem here. And the only thing that protects all of those pensioned workers in New Jersey, well, it's the fact that pensions have to be paid statutorily. It's in the New Jersey State Constitution that they get paid. But for that, I think some people would get, the crappy end of the stick. So anyway, this analysis noted that with those two things being the majority, the most common trick that they use is to understate the costs, excluding the actual compensation costs of employee benefits like healthcare, life insurance, and pensions. So while pensions and other things like healthcare won't be paid until employees retire, they still represent part of the current compensation cost, but they don't include it. So they try to make their balance sheet look a little bit lighter. And that's part of how they play this game. But they're a lot closer to insolvency than we think, at least according to Truth in Accounting's analysis. So we look at that and we think, man, this used to only happen to like tough cities, Detroit, right, and other big cities like that. Now, not so much. Now it's happening to cities all over the place. So when we talk about poverty in the inner city, that might be coming to a city near you sooner than you think. Hopefully not. All right, folks, we'll talk about 2024, what's going on in politics, all of the crazy with one of the biggest and most plugged in public relations pros in the business. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy Tuesday to you. Hope you had a great, what was that weekend? President's Day. And we're going to get into some talk about the president and all of the other funny business that's going on in Washington. Part of what I wanted to talk about tonight, and again, if you want to join us, feel free to give us a call. We're live until 1 a.m., 833-4825-337-8334. Valdez is the phone number, and it's at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. If you want to chime in, that's Valdez with an S. And there's a lot going on with Russia. There's a lot going on, of course, in the Middle East with Hamas. And there's always no lack of stories when it comes to somebody I like to call Joe El Baboso Biden. And we'll talk about that as well. But ultimately, it's the media. The media is always creating some sort of narrative, right? And, you know, some try to criticize me and say that I'm part of the vast right-wing conspiracy. But I try to always play you a clip from the other side, and then I give my reaction to it. While they don't always do that, right? They might play a clip of Trump and then just stop it, or, you know, show video of Trump and stop it and just, you know, kind of ad-lib over him where you don't even get to hear what he's saying. And they'll say things like, well, you know, he's a threat to democracy. You can't hear his lies, blah, 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 all sorts of things. But I try to give you the most context I can. And the folks on the other side, in particular, the morning joke, right? Joe Scarborough on MSNBC. He always has interesting things to say, in my opinion, right? And one of the things he said now is that Republicans have surrendered to communism. Now, I think Republicans have surrendered to communism. How so? Listen to this.
Republicans, who for the past 50 years have been the main force to push back hard on communism, they've surrendered to the communists. They've surrendered. Mike Johnson surrendered to the communists, to the ex-communists, to the wannabe communists. Mike Johnson surrendered. Donald Trump surrendered a long time ago to Vladimir Putin. Surrendered to Xi a long time ago.
Now, I don't believe that. Now, I'll be the first to say, and you've heard me criticize some of my friends and colleagues, that there is a number of pro-Putin patriots out there. But I don't think Trump is one of them. I don't think that Mike Johnson is one of them. I don't think I'm one of them for sure. And I would wonder why Joe Scarborough would say such a thing. But I know why, because he's full of it. He's a fake, he's a phony, he's a fraud. And that's what he does. So I want to talk about the narrative that the media creates, how Trump tends to get ahead of it, right in front of it. And that kind of messes them up a little bit. And I want to do that with one of the most knowledgeable names in the PR business in D.C., Erica Knight. She's the founder, the president of Knox Strategies, and she's with us now. Erica Knight, welcome.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for having me tonight.
You bet. My pleasure. So let's talk about this. First of all, what's your reaction when you hear Joe Scarborough saying that Republicans have surrendered to communism? How do you respond to that?
Well, look, they've been trying to push that narrative for years. You and I have known each other a while, and we've talked about the Russia collusion narrative since, you know, how long ago? And when they're losing, when they're down in the polls, when they can't beat President Trump, what do? They create these fake situations. They create these fake narratives, and they try to take him down with, you know, anything they can that that keeps them out. And I think the hard thing for them now is we're onto them. And I think that we've learned quite a bit since their first Russia collusion hoax. And they can say that. They can try to divert people to complete and total nonsense because our sitting president is a complete cognitive wreck. But at this point, I think so many people are woken up that they can't fool us anymore.
You know, Eric, and I think that's a brilliant point. And really, you know, as you were saying it, I stopped to think, and I thought to myself, you know, so they're saying that Republicans are communists, or at least surrendered to the communists, and yet it was the Democrats that went ahead and used these communist tactics, the show trial, like the impeachment, the show trial that they used with Russia collusion and the whole Mueller escapade. And they constantly employ these communist tactics, yet they're the ones doing it. And you're right. Back then, people were buying it, and they said, oh, my gosh, that Trump, you know, shame, 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 tisk, tisk, tisk. But today, I think people realize, wow, the whole thing wasn't really working. That's why Trump decides to sell a sneaker for $400, and now they're selling for like $9,000 on eBay. You know, I didn't even get a pair. So,
well, welcome to capitalism. What makes us
right?
What makes
Amen
it so
to that.
great, but yeah,
but I think you're spot on with that. That they really they really do try, and that is their go-to.
Well, and I mean, what they're doing right now, I mean, it's a complete example of what a banana republic is. I mean, many people have come to America over the years. Immigration is what started this country, what made this country great. And a lot of people fled bad situations in Syria and Venezuela, and they came here because that wasn't how it worked over here. And now we're watching, you know, they're using a politicized justice system to take down a sitting president. I mean, it's amazing. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible is the right word. Although I think that because of Trump figuring out that they're going to come at him, I really think it's just longevity, right? I think because Trump was this guy that was apolitical and, you know, donated to both sides, lean Democrat, whatever it was, but he needed to build a building, right? He needed to build a building. He needed to buy a piece of property, whatever it was. And he did this for years and years and years. And then he did TV, and then he had other businesses. And he realized...
And they loved him. They loved him. The Democrats and the media machine were obsessed with him. In a good way. They couldn't get enough.
They were nice to him. But every now and again, he knew how to play the game. And he knew if the media was going to come at you, how they were going to come at you, because he was part of the media, right? He had a TV show on NBC. He was a TV person. So I think all of that puts him in a position where he's able to kind of see things coming before they come. And he also has the foresight as a 70-something-year-old guy, you know, who has already been president, who's been a billionaire a couple of times over, faced bankruptcy many years ago, and was able to come back from that. And he's a New Yorker, so he's a really sharp guy. I think that puts him in a position where he's able to see things coming, where he can say, you know, we should probably put some sneakers out there. We should probably, you know, do a little bit of this. We should. He just comes up with these things that I think really grab new parts of the audience that nobody ever saw coming.
Yeah. Well, it's completely out of left field. And, you know, and he wants them to stop talking about, you know, all of this other chaos. Exactly what you're saying. I mean, he makes some sneakers and all of a sudden they're obsessed with that. And I think what people don't understand is he knows what he's doing. He is a master marketer. That's what he's been good at his entire life. And it's not by accident. I mean, even when he says things, you know, I'm going to be a dictator on day one.
Right,
that wasn't some accident that slipped out of his mouth. That wasn't, you know, something that just came to him right then. He knows what he's doing. And what did they do? They spun out 7,000 different headlines calling him crazy. And you know what? That's exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, for days on end.
Exactly. They're still talking about it. And I mean, what are they getting away from? The problem that there are illegal immigrants coming into our country that are criminals, that are killing people, that are raping people, and we don't seem to care in any capacity, yet he says that he's going to do something about it. And, you know, they think he's a communist dictator.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think Trump could give both of us a run for our money in what we do for a living if he doesn't become president, right? Because, I mean, he's just really good at that, having that foresight and communicating with people. Folks, we're on with Erica Knight. She's founder and president of Knox Strategies, crisis and public relations person in D.C., knows the game, and reminds me of like a real life, what's the lady from Scandal?
Olivia Pope.
Yes, Olivia Pope, a real life Olivia Pope. And there is a real life one, Olivia Pope, who worked in the Bush administration. Judy, I forget her last name, Judy Smith. But Erica Knight is a modern day Erica Knight. And we're going to find out exactly how she got into this world of public relations and crisis communications when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, amigos. And we continue our discussion with Erica Knight. She is a crisis communications pro, and she is the founder of the political and public relations firm Knox Strategies. You can check them out at knoxstrats.com. Erica Knight, how do you, go from being a nice young lady from wherever you're from? Where are you from?
Arizona, Scottsdale.
Arizona. Okay. How do you end up in the swamp doing this stuff?
You know, I am in Palm Beach now, so I try to stay a lot in the swamp, but I try to keep a little bit of a distance from that swamp anyway. I think it's a little bit of a warmer one down here, but DC.
What was that journey like?
From Arizona to Palm Beach? Well, you know, I like it warm, so this is quite frankly the mecca of the entire party has accepted that Donald Trump is going to be our nominee. And I mean, it's electric down here this time of year. It's season. There are fundraisers every single night. There are, candidates from all over the country, lawmakers, leaders that are really rallying behind President Trump. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Mar-a-Lago, but it's a beautiful place worth just about $15 million. And
that's what the judge says, right? 18 million. It's worth. Yeah, I've been there twice, and I was floored. I was floored by the attention to detail on so much of the older architecture, right? Because everything there is old, very old.
Yeah,
and
they got
yet
a really
it looks
good deal
brand
on
new.
it. Yeah. No, it's a beautiful place. I think, not to get down that subject, but I think there's a place down the road that's up on the market for about $295 million. That's a third of the size. So
yeah,
really,
I saw an empty lot
really
as well. That was worth a lot more as well. I thought that's funny. Somebody should show that to the judge.
Lots, $25 million. So
maybe one day. So Erica Knight, though, how do you end up in this world of crisis communications? Because I think it's a tough field to be in, number one. And number two, I think, I don't know that most people know, in high school, I want to go to school for comms and be a comms person. Was that your case? What was the story like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is always what I wanted to do. I mean, specific scenario, I don't think I could have really written that one up for you, but you get it sucked into project after project, and you realize how important it is to fight for the truth and fight for what matters. And I mean, this day and age, that people are being attacked from every direction. I mean, especially in our party. And I think it's really, really important that we fight back, get on offense, and get our message out there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. You gotta fight. Now, President Trump was, let's see, where was he? He was on Fox News doing a town hall. And one of the things he said really stuck out to me. I'm going to play it so that the audience can hear it. I'm pretty sure you've heard already. But he's predicting a very, very big loss for Nikki Haley in this Saturday's South Carolina primary. Check this out.
She's not working. She's here. She's down by 30, 35 points. And everybody knows her. You're not supposed to lose your home state. Shouldn't happen anyway. And she's losing it big. I mean, really, I said bigly and bigly too. She's losing it bigly, but we're gonna really do a job. I think that, as you know, when we went to Iowa, we got the biggest margin in the history of the caucus. The biggest. That's a long time.
That's a long time. Love him. So he said he's predicting a loss for Nikki Haley. And he's probably right. His last few predictions have been right. What do you see happening? Because, she's kind of doubled down saying she's not going anywhere until she feels like going anywhere, and she's not kissing anybody's ring.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's absolutely right. There is no path to victory for Nikki Haley. I really, quite frankly, have no idea why she is still running this campaign. She seems to have plenty of money to spend, and instead of putting that towards electing the leader of our party, she's going to continue to flush it down the drain for some type of vanity campaign, probably based on donors that, we can't forget that there's the people running, and then there's all of the outside PACs around them and the down ballot candidates that they're also supporting. And most of this is, controlled by money. So, we see this outwardly that she's, trying to do this and trying to run this quite frankly, inevitably failing campaign. But I think what people don't understand always that there are many dynamics around that, and it's probably something that we'll never see. But she's going to lose. Absolutely. Bigly is absolutely right.
Bigly's an understatement. Yeah.
Now, you'll probably see a headline tomorrow about his misuse of grammar, but
right, making up words.
She will lose. Right.
Oh, boy. Now, Erica Knight, in the remaining time that we have, I want you to tell us a little bit about Knox Strategies, the type of work that you're doing now, and what we can expect to come down the pipe for Knox Strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I definitely love to work with some of the best America First personalities in the country. I think that's how you and I, first got to talking and first met. And I do a lot of campaign work with some great candidates across the country and really just try to be in President Trump's corner and make sure the people surrounding him, the people that he wants to get elected, are having their message heard.
And if people want to learn a little bit more about the work that you're doing, how do they follow you? How do they get in touch with you?
You can go to knoxstrats.com, and my socials are just my name, Erica Knight.
And that's Knight with a K, at Erica Knight. Give her a follow, like Knight Writer. Cool. Erica Knight, it was a pleasure, and I hope we could do it again soon. I love working with you and everybody on your team and a lot of your clients, great guests that we've had on this program. And Godspeed to you. You're a gentlewoman, a patriot, and a scholar.
Thanks, Rich. Have a good night.
Likewise. And, folks, we continue with your calls and more coming up straight ahead. Plus, we've got a little conversation on something called the WEF, the World Economic Forum, right? The evil genius Klaus Schwab and his, what do we call his little friend? We got to come up with a good name for Dr. Yuval Harari. Because he's a force to be reckoned with, right? I make fun of him, but he's really popular on social media. He's respected amongst people that like left-leaning professors. He's really something else. So these two nutty professors, they're out there all the time, causing their chaos. And there's a group now that's founded just to push back on what comes out of their annual meeting that comes out of Davos, Switzerland. So we're going to learn about what this group is all about and how they push back and counter the World Economic Forum and the global agenda. And I think that's important. Plus, it's Open Phone America. You know that tradition started by Larry King right on this program back in 1978 when he had one of the hottest radio shows in America that was, put really late night on the map for many stations. So we're keeping that tradition alive tonight with you all. The phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. I want to hear from you on all the topics we've discussed and get your thoughts on those. And of course, you can always chime in on social media or check out the website, Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez, keeping you company till 1 a.m. Eastern time. I'm in the New York area. If you're listening across the country, welcome back to the program, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to talk about a group that's been started to counter the craziness of the World Economic Forum. Of course, that's Klaus Schwab, who looks like a real-life modern-day Dr. Evil, like the one that's portrayed by Mike Myers in Austin Powers, and his evil henchman sidekick, Yuval Harari. And there's others involved with the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and they get together in Davos, Switzerland, and they do their thing. And as much as I make fun of them from time to time, and I try not to give them that much airplay, but the reality is they do have an impact, and they have a very big audience of governments all over Europe and the rest of the world that think that everything that they talk about, whether it's robotics or AI or you name it, replacing humans with androids and all sorts of things they come up with, all of that stuff is widely received and respected by a lot of people. And more people need to hear the counter arguments to these things, because otherwise people will only hear what they're saying. They'll think, yeah, sure, terrific. At least those that aren't really thinking about things very critically. So to counter their mission here, there's a group that's countering the Davos people, and it's called Davos in the Desert. And it's a new anti-globalist movement dedicated to providing forums where business leaders, thought leaders, government leaders, or servants can share their ideas for safeguarding freedom and liberty without the woke agendas. And I think that's great. So I want to hear more about Davos in the Desert and what they've recently done. And I want to do that with the founder and CEO of Davos in the Desert, Dave Wanetick. David, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be on your program.
Thank you. So let's dig into this. What were you doing before you decided to start this organization?
Well, I do have a day job. I'm an investment banker, but I've always been involved in political activity. So I started Davos in the Desert about a year ago. Before that, I organized a lot of events for Republican candidates to introduce themselves to their constituents and to share their message and their platform with voters. So I organized a lot of breakfast meetings, lunch meetings, dinners, cocktails, that kind of thing.
And so you're involved in politics and you understand the world of finance as a banker. And one day you decide, you know what, this stuff that's going on in Switzerland is no good. We need to counter that. What was the impetus for you to start this organization, Davos in the Desert?
Well, it was sort of an offshoot of what I'd been doing. I've been very active in developing programs, and just reading information such as you cited at the beginning of the program, caused me a great deal of concern. I'm very concerned about globalists trying to reduce the global population, and we can see that happening by their constant war on farmers. We see that farmers are under attack in all over Europe, in the United States, in Asia, even Africa. And it's very obvious that if we don't have farmers, we don't have food, and people don't have food, they're not going to survive. And the globalists base their plans basically on a lie of man-made climate change, which really does not exist. But it's a great hoax, because once you can assign people to causing carbon emissions, then you can control everything. You can control the production of food. You can tell people which household appliances to buy. You can tell people they can't buy cars. They can't fly in airplanes very frequently. And so it's a great hoax to control and micromanage our lives.
And what's interesting about that, and I agree with you there, is that all of these things, whether it's the climate hoax or many others, all of this stuff is done to exert control, right? More control and more power over a particular area or industry. And this seems to be what Davos, what comes out of Davos all the time from the World Economic Forums. They come out with a new plan to do a new thing, and they influence things like ESG and other ideas that, kind of come out as kind of pilot programs, but eventually become the new normal. And I think it's interesting that we are not very critical towards these ideas. Why do you think these new grandiose ideas come out of the minds and mouths of Klaus Schwab, Yuval Harari, and others in the World Economic Forum, and not too many people bat an eye?
Part of it's because of censorship. The WHO says the biggest problem now is not any medical issue. It's misinformation or disinformation. And on the WHO's website, they boast about, in a one-year period, having caused YouTube to take down 850,000 video clips. So they're very active.
Were these
in
related
censoring.
to like everything, or just towards like health issues, or what were they taking? What were they censoring in particular?
Yeah, I believe their focus is health issues, and there was a lot of comments and very fine research was done, including by Stanford professors in epidemiology, refuting the vaccines that were directed towards COVID-19.
Right.
So we're not allowed to take a position different than what a few globalists, a few elite leaders think is best for us. And I think that's a very dangerous situation.
Folks, stick with us. We're having a conversation on how to counter the World Economic Forum and what this group is doing. Dave Wanetick is our guest, and David Wanetick is the founder and CEO of Davos in the Desert. DavosInTheDesert.us is their website. Stick with us. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue our conversation with Dave Wanetick, founder and CEO of Davos in the Desert. And Dave Wanetick, I'm looking at thehill.com today. I see largest multi-country COVID study links vaccines to potential adverse effects. This, of course, is an article titled Today by Joseph Choi, the 19th of February, 2024. And this study looked at nearly 100 million vaccinated individuals, and it affirmed that these vaccines have links to increased risks for certain effects, adverse effects, like myocarditis and others. And I look at this and I think, well, you know, people have been talking about this for a long time, and it wasn't because we had a hunch, right? It was because there were other doctors out there that were getting censored, like you just mentioned in the previous segment. And are we turning a corner that we're seeing more information that is questioning the efficacy of the vaccine, or is this just damage control?
I think more and more people are realizing that the vaccines cause quite a bit of harm. I've seen a study that said that 17 million people died unnecessarily because they took the vaccine. And yes, it's known that the vaccine has caused heart damage. It's caused a lot of fertility problems, and many other issues. We were also not allowed to take ivermectin, and that was a very inexpensive drug. It cost about $1. It had been prescribed, I think, about 3.5 billion times before COVID arose, and it had great effects on people. And now people are starting to realize that ivermectin was a good drug. But the CDC couldn't allow ivermectin on the market because if ivermectin was a good cure for COVID, they would not have been able to push through the COVID vaccines. They couldn't get emergency use authorization if there was a compelling cure for COVID on the market already. So we were forbidden to use ivermectin when it could have helped many, many people.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that, not to get too into those weeds, but I find it interesting that both ivermectin, which is anti-parasitic medicine, just like the other anti-malaria medicine, what was that one called?
HCQ.
Hydroxychloroquine, right. Yeah. Both of these fight malaria or parasites. And this virus is not necessarily parasitic, but I spoke with a doctor the other day, and he said that the reason that they're effective is because of how they these anti-parasitic medicines affect the spike protein that's part of it, and the protein that wraps around these viruses, and that's ultimately what it breaks down, and that's why it's so effective. And I thought, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And you would think something so simple that doctors did know at the time, just they weren't allowed to talk about. And I think that type of censorship is no good. And as we look at more and more of what comes out of the folks at Davos, it begs the question to me: do you think we're going to see more censorship when it comes to these things, or are we headed in a direction where we're going to see a little bit less censorship and a little bit more medical freedom?
Well, the WHO, as I mentioned, is making a huge effort. They've cited so-called misinformation as being the number one issue that they're grappling with, that they're fighting against. So we do have an uphill fight. And, thank goodness Elon Musk acquired Twitter, X, and so there's more freedom through that channel. But it's a constant battle. The mainstream media is very much against free speech. There's coordination between the Biden administration and social media, and they've boasted about that. They've boasted that people in the White House have contacted social media outlets and told them that there's so-called hate speech or misinformation, and they caused things to be taken off of social media. We saw what happened with Hunter Biden's laptop. There was a lot of incriminating information on that, but that was suppressed during the crucial weeks in the run-up to the last presidential election.
Now, David Wanetick, I want to ask you a question related to the work that you're doing, because obviously the work that the WEF is doing is clearly problematic when you look at the agenda that they're promoting. What type of work or what activities do you have planned to counter that? Is this like a think tank, or is it an activism type of approach where you're going to use advocacy? How do you plan to counter the World Economic Forum?
So we do what we can. We support legislation. For example, we support Congressman Perry's recently introduced bill called the Defund Davos Act. We support, and I've suggested amendments to H.R. 79, which is the WHO Withdrawal Act that was introduced by my congressman, Andy Biggs. We also support other
good idea.
legislation.
We should withdraw.
Yeah. And there's another, very concerning development is that the UN, which we pay over $1 billion to every year, they have programs such as the International Organization for Migration, which takes the funding that we and other countries give it and uses that to entice people from all over the world to breach our borders, to become illegal immigrants. And they are part of the network that gives them a lot of cash when people come, even illegally. They get free housing, they get free transportation, they get all the rights they want, free education, health care, and cash allowances, and they're put up in hotels, sometimes very nice hotels. So there's a bill that's against this development, H.R. 6166, that would cause the United States to stop contributing to the International Organization for Migration, which is a UN body. And so I think that's very important, because part of the problem with globalists is that they don't respect sovereignty. They don't respect borders. They don't think there should be borders. They think people from anywhere in the world can go wherever they want without having to stop for any kind of a border control. And so in addition to globalists wanting to reduce the worldwide population by the war against farmers is just one example. They want to micromanage our lives, as we mentioned, and they also want to erase sovereignty and erase borders. And we see how expensive it is in the United States. We're spending billions of dollars taking care of these people. Something that hits us all in the pockets now is many of these illegal immigrants drive. They have no insurance. And so the American taxpayers, American workers, witnessed very, very high spikes in their insurance premiums for everything, for cars, for housing. And part of that is because we have 8 million people that don't have to play by the rules thanks to the globalists erasing our borders.
Well put. Folks, David Wanetick, founder and CEO of Davos in the Desert. And David, let everybody know the website one more time.
Yes, it's Davos, DAVOS, in the desert.us.
My brother, Godspeed to you. It's a lot of work that you're doing and an important work at that.
Thank you.
You bet. Folks, make sure you check out their website, davosinthedesert.us. David Wanetick is the founder and CEO of Davos in the Desert. We're going to come back to your calls and more right before we kick off Open Phone America. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue with your phone calls and more. And the World Economic Forum, right? An interesting thing. Maybe I'll talk about it a little more. I try, again, honestly, I remember once a caller calling and saying, how come you never talk about Klaus Schwab? I said, I'm not talking about it. But they called during a time where Klaus Schwab had just released a book. And I didn't want to give him any publicity because I didn't agree with the book, and I thought the book was detrimental to the United States, to the fabric of what our country is, and this is the country my children have to live in. But I told him, look, I'm not plugging his book. Somebody tried to call and plug his book, and we dumped it, and it didn't make it on the air. And they were upset. They were saying, you never talk about Klaus Schwab. You're covering for Klaus Schwab. I think I'm covering. I don't even like that guy. But the reason they thought that was because some people want to hear about everything all the time. And some people are really good at that. They're like John the Baptist, right? They're, that voice in the wilderness. I don't know if that's necessarily me. I try to give you all the voices in the wilderness that are calling out and help you make sense of them, right? Or at least give you my take on it so you can make sense of it on your own. And that's kind of the way I interpret life and this business. But Klaus Schwab and those guys, no doubt, are nut jobs. And if you have something to say or sing about Klaus Schwab or recite, feel free. Let's go to, let's see, where's our guy who has the poem? Line 1, Jim, Las Cruces, New Mexico, listening on KOBE. Jim, you've got a minute. Make it quick. Go right ahead.
You will own nothing and you will be happy if you know what's good for you. So be a good little stakeholder. Eat your bug soup and your cockroach stew.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. We may use that on the air again, like as a liner. Because A, you sound a lot like Klaus Schwab, and B, that's what they talk about, right? Eating bugs and cockroaches. No, you can't eat cows. You need protein. Eat bugs. They're insane. Jim, that was fantastic. I appreciate it. Well worth the wait. And America, we're coming back to your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. It's Open Phone America with me, Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And Hour number 3, Open Phone America. We're going to get to your calls momentarily. Make sure you give a call if you want to sound off on one of the topics we discuss. If you want to introduce a new topic, that's fine too. It's the beauty of late night radio. We get to have a little bit of a free-for-all. And speaking of the free-for-all, the other day I was talking with one of Hannity's old producers, Flirty Flipper. And we were talking about the final hour free-for-all that Hannity used to do on Fridays. And I was telling her, we get to do it every night. We do the final hour free-for-all every night on Open Phone America. And this show, not me, but this show's been doing it since before Hannity was doing it, which I thought was a pretty cool tradition. And she was saying that was one of her most fun times to be a part of the program was when, everything went and everybody could call in. So if you're a first-time caller, we're going to move you right to the front of the line. We always want to hear from first-time callers. Want to know your name, what city you're calling from, what station you're listening on. And, of course, if you're a regular, you're always welcome. And if you disagree, we're moving you right to the front of the line as well, right? The only person going in front of people that disagree is somebody who's calling in for the first time. So 833-482-5337 is the phone number. And we're going to talk about a number of things tonight, but a little recap of what we've discussed thus far, right? Because I think we've had quite a bit of conversation tonight. We talked with Reverend Pablo Pizarro, and this is a kid from the Bronx, came out of the projects in the Bronx, went into ministry, turned his life around, the only one of his siblings that was not born addicted to crack cocaine, and that was because his mother gave birth to him incarcerated. And it's an amazing story of a kid that had a lot of adversity, ended up becoming the senior pastor of one of the largest churches in Newark, New Jersey, and reaching out to the community, serving as a consultant and a speaker and an author, and just really reaching a lot of people. He's a chaplain to the police department, just a lot that they do. And again, the story's not about him as much as it is about hope and perseverance in the American dream from a spiritual perspective, if you will. So great conversation. Then we spoke with Erica Knight. She's one of the top political and crisis communications experts in the country. She's out of Palm Beach and Washington, D.C., and gave us some thoughts on how Trump is able to kind of stay ahead of the narrative because they're always out to get him. And then we talked with Dave Wanetick, who is the founder what's the group called? Davos in the Desert. And they're a group countering what's coming out of the World Economic Forum, where they meet every year in Davos, Switzerland, and the work that they're doing in Congress and externally to counter those initiatives that come out of there. So I want to talk about all those things. And, of course, Nikki Haley's scheduled to lose the South Carolina primary, and looking forward to seeing that. And that's pretty much everything I think that we talked about. Now, let's see. I want to go to, let's see, first-time caller. We got a first-time caller here. Let's go to Michelle calling us on America's oldest radio station, KDKA. What's up, Michelle? You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hi, I thank you for taking my call.
My
This
pleasure.
is my brother-in-law, he's 80 years old. He hasn't had an accident in years. I got his car insurance, and his car insurance went up $120 every 6 months. When I called the insurance company, they told me that this is something that's going across the board for everybody, which I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But they're saying, because of the illegals driving in car accidents, that his car insurance went up this much for no fault of his own, which I find it's sad.
Listen, I think you're right, Michelle. First, thanks for calling the show. It's always great to hear from our friends in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But I will say this. There was a bill that was before the New Jersey legislature about a year ago, and it would have raised everybody's car insurance by something like 40% in the state of New Jersey. Now, I remember at the time I sent it via text message to someone that I know that's in the New Jersey state legislature and who happens to be an insurance agent as well. And their response was, this is a horrible bill. It's unlikely to pass. And it didn't. But the spirit behind it is still there, and that definitely passed, right? It doesn't need to be codified into law for it to happen. My insurance also went up, and it's interesting because it simultaneously went down, right? So in theory, it went down because I had removed a car from my policy. I had been paying a surcharge that ended, and that was caused my policy to go down, and it did go down. But just as it went down, it went right back up. And instead of saving like $400 a month, I was saving only like $200 a month. And I thought, I'm not really saving anything because I removed an entire car from here. And it seems like they're still charging me $200 more than they should. And that's basically their thing is, everything is going up. That's the answer that they have is prices have gone up everywhere. Not like, you're doing more driving or you're driving on a dangerous route. No, this car's parked most of the time. So the bottom line there was you're right. Insurance has gone up for lots of people. I think the only way to beat it is to go somewhere more affordable because, in my area, it's pretty high, maybe high in your area if you're close to the city. But the further away you get, the cheaper it gets. And I think that's the only saving grace we have is to get out of Dodge. Anyway, Michelle, thank you so much for your call. Big shout out to everybody in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Let's go to the other side of the country, Montana, KOFI, and check in with Lance calling us from Kalispell, Montana. Lance, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Good evening, Rich. Thank you for taking my call.
Pleasure.
Just given everything that's transpired with Donald Trump and your alternate ego for the great one, I was wondering what your thoughts were on whether or not you're going to remain in New York or entertaining ideas of relocating.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I've talked about this on the air before. I would love to go to South Florida. I love South Florida. It's my kind of weather. It's my kind of vibe. I'm into that. And I love to get sun. I don't necessarily like hurricanes, but I enjoy it. The problem I ran into is from this idea, right? It struck me, I'd say, 2022, right? Maybe 2021. And I said, I'm going to start saving. Let's see what happens in a year. And I'd saved a few bucks, and a year came around. And from the time that I started saving and looking at prices to the time of 2022, prices had gotten a little bit more expensive. And I thought, man, it's going to be tougher to make the kind of move I want. And I saved a little more, and I continued looking around. And the cost of housing in South Florida was going up faster than anybody could save, right? I mean, when I started looking at these one-bedroom or large studio condos in these condominiums that were, for the most part, on the water in Miami Beach area. They were $180K, $200K for something that is in a very old Art Deco type of building, not one of these skyscrapers with an elevator, but more like, a fourth-floor walk-up type of thing. And some of them were a little bigger, but they were, these smaller buildings, older buildings. And that became an impossibility quickly. And today I look at those prices, and some of them are back down to like high 200s, but most of them are mid threes, even into 400K. We're talking for one bedroom and studio for an older building and with relatively steep homeowners association fees. So when I looked at all that, I said, man, I'm not really going to save any money. And originally I was going to save money moving to Florida. That didn't seem like the case anymore. Now it's like I just want to pay what I'm paying here over there. And even that doesn't look like I can pull it off unless I continue to save and, come in with 50% down payment or some other really large nut to keep my monthly payment down. So I'm going to keep looking at things and see what comes around. I have a feeling that it may level out sooner rather than later. And I think, South Florida, Miami area especially, it's always going to be on the costly side. It's always been the adult playground of many. I get that. But, that is ultimately my thought. I would like to go somewhere hot. I've considered Puerto Rico, too, but I think it's a little expensive in Puerto Rico, honestly. It's probably more expensive than Miami. when you look at not the real estate as much, but the rest of the cost of living, and that's the part that gets me. And also, I just I feel like it's easy in and out when you're on a barrier island and connected to like Greater Miami, but when you're in Puerto Rico, that's it. You're on an island, and that can be troublesome, especially if I'm gonna have to broadcast from there. I don't know how reliable connections are when you're more prone to bad weather when you're on an island. So those are all considerations that I'm making. But yeah, those are my thoughts, Lance.
Well, we don't have the beaches or the tropical weather, but Montana is a beautiful place that would probably benefit from someone with your integrity, your upstandingness, and your willingness to speak out for everything that's right. I mean, so,
Oh, Lance, that's nice to consider. And you know what? Maybe our team could reach out to KOFI, and maybe I'll go visit you guys in Kalispell and do a live show right from KOFI, if that's an opportunity they would afford me. And because I fell in love with what Montana looks like on the show Yellowstone, and I found out it was really Wyoming. But one of our other callers from Kalispell told me that Montana is actually even better looking. And I wouldn't mind going out there and giving it a good old check it out to see what it's like, because, I mean, it's God's country and it's beautiful. So thank you for your kind words and for the invitation. And I'm hoping I take you up on it, at least for a visit, to see what's going on there. And that goes for all the affiliates, right? If I was talking to one of our newest affiliates, we just started probably just less than a month ago on KYST Houston. And I heard they're having an event coming up, and I'm hoping to get an invitation to that. I was on one of their morning shows recently, and it was a really good time. Seems like they have a great bunch of people there, and I'm happy to come on out and hang out if they're willing to have me. So we'll see how that goes, Lance. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Folks, we're going to take a quick pause right here. Coming back to your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
There is more news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Why do you think that people... all these polls show like a lot of voters look back on the Trump years and they think they didn't like a lot about it, but they think the economy was good in the Trump years. And I know that like we weren't, I know, well, at the end, clearly. And then at the end, when COVID happened and, they figure, oh, well, COVID happened all around the world. And so, of course, the economy went south. But, before that, Donald Trump was, he was presiding over an okay economy.
Again, I don't know. I can't explain polling. No, I mean, I can't.
No, I don't.
I can't. And I can't explain how the narratives come to be. I also can't explain how sensitive are they. I'm going to now sound like the professor I used to be. How sensitive are they to the exact questions that get asked? Because you do get real differences in this. All I can do is do the look ahead. Mm-hmm. And the look ahead is going to be draw this contrast.
That's Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, on Pod Save America. She was asked why voters missed the Trump economy, and she just says, look, I don't know. I can't explain polling, right? Not just saying, things were actually better. The annual median household income annually was $6,500 higher than it is now. And I mean, this is not something that you can, actually it was way more than that. It was up $6,500 from what it was when Trump came in. Since then, it's gone back down to that baseline and then down another, I think, $6,000. So just goes to show you how effective the economy was for people in their actual pocketbooks. But you think Senator Elizabeth Warren can relate? No, not at all. She doesn't care about the cost of living anywhere. But I'd like to get a take on the cost of living in Florida, because I want to go down to Florida. Let's go to Lawrence. He's a first-time caller from Avon Park, Florida, listening on WWTK. Lawrence, what's up? You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Rich, I've been living here all my life, and I actually I've noticed the area around me. I live in a pretty small neighborhood, but it's mainly the woods. And you see all these like Tampa numbers and Fort Lauderdale numbers. They're all buying up all these lots and they're turning them into houses and stuff, and they're going for pretty high price.
Oh yeah,
and this is pretty backwoods stuff too.
Right. Same thing's happening here. And we don't have backwoods right here. It's like, it was an empty lot. Now it's a building with 4 or 5 floors in it, and with a parking lot on the first level. And you never would have thought they'd be able to squeeze a building in there. I look around me, and there is so much construction going up, and I think to myself, it's already so congested. There's already so many people. But I'm pretty sure all of those illegal aliens that are new to the country are going to make their way across the river from Manhattan into Jersey, and they're going to occupy some of the new apartments and housing that's coming up in Hackensack and in Little Ferry. And, you're talking minutes from Manhattan, about 4 miles from the center of Times Square. And it's going to undoubtedly be occupied by the people that are in this area. And they're part of the people that are in this area. And not only that, but they're the ones that are coming with funding from all over the place, from these UN quasi-related agencies, from our federal government and more, where people are getting, rental payments for months at a time. And it's just it's a tough scenario. But yeah, you're right. The cost of living is tough. And Tampa is one of the more affordable areas where my girlfriend's mom, she has a place in Florida, and the deal is good there in Tampa. Not as close to Miami as I'd like to be, but something to consider. So Lawrence, thanks for the call, my man. I appreciate it. I hope you'll call back again. Big shout out to everybody in Avon Park, WWTK. And let's see. There was one more I wanted to get to. Bill, Jefferson City, Missouri, KTTR. Go right ahead quickly.
This is Bill in Jefferson City. Got some great perfect finale for 2 World War II POWs.
Well, you know what, Bill? I don't want to cut them short, so stay on the line. We're coming right back to you. And a racehorse that was caught with meth last month. I want to remind you of that story. Don't go anywhere. Bill, stick around. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Gardy's Legacy tested positive for methamphetamine back on September 3rd. According to the U.S. Trotting Association, a blood sample was collected from the horse shortly after winning the first race of the day. Documents on the association's website showed that the Ohio State Racing Commission suspended harness trainer Samuel Scalacci for 1 year and ordered him to pay a $1,000 fine. Now, Fox 8 reached out to the Ohio State Racing Commission, who released a statement saying the judges gave the maximum penalty allowed by law. Statutorily, the maximum that a judge can issue is a $1,000 fine and a 1-year suspension. In Cleveland, Melissa Reed, Fox 8 News.
So I wanted to play that one for you because, again, this was about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, that this horse was caught with methamphetamine after, racing in a race. And I thought, did I get that right? Do horses actually, are they doping horses with meth? I mean, I know humans, it's kind of like, a drug. It's the one Hunter Biden used, many say. But I didn't know that horses did that. And do they have the same effects, like that increased arousal and all that other stuff? I don't know. Just remarkable that people are getting their horses high in order to win races. And if anybody's a jockey out there and could kind of school me on that, I'd love to hear the between the lines on why we would give a horse meth, of all things, right? You would think maybe anabolic steroids or something like that, but meth? Anyway, I want to continue with your calls, and if you want to chime in on the horse story, go right ahead. But we did leave off with Bill in Jefferson City, Missouri on KTTR, and Bill is our resident historian, unofficial resident historian on this program, and he was telling us about a very fitting ceremony for two prisoners of war from World War II. Bill, go right ahead.
Yes, those guys were on the B-17, and they marched through the snow as one of the last of Missouri's World War II POWs.
That is
the
fantastic.
Finale.
Yep.
Say again?
No, I was saying it's fantastic to honor guys like that. I've met a couple of World War II heroes myself, and they're very remarkable, so it's great to treat them right.
I just read the book by Adam Marcos that you had on your show yesterday, and that was a great book. And these guys were equally interesting. It was a perfect finale in the cemetery because the Missouri Army National Guard, 3 attack helicopters flew in close formation, flying at treetop level, and I was out in the cold. It was 25 degrees, the sun was shining, but there was a big crosswind, so it came down to about 0. And that was just an awesome sight. I hope someone took a photo of it because it was a great tribute to all POWs, whoever flew that ever flew for the Air Force or the Army or the Army Air Corps. So I just thought that was worth telling you about today. What do you think?
Well, like I said, I think it's always very fitting to honor the heroes from the greatest generation. And I'm always very thankful to you, Bill, for taking time to notice those things and recognize them on the air, which is why I call you our unofficial historian. Bill, always a pleasure. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. And I thank you for your call. Big shout out to everybody in Jefferson City, Jeff City, Missouri in the building, KTTR. I want to continue. Let's see, where did I want to go from here? Let us go back to horse doping. No, we don't have anybody there. Nobody wants to talk about horse doping. Let me see who's next on this list. We've got Frank, Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Frank, go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Earlier in the program, you referred to the cost of living in Puerto Rico compared to the cost of living in southern Florida. And a few years ago, Puerto Rico went bankrupt, didn't it? Mm-hmm. And I'd like to know, how did that affect the lives of ordinary Puerto Ricans? Because we may be looking at bankruptcy in the USA ourselves.
Well, that's exactly how I started that point, right? The point of the whole conversation was that 70% of the largest cities in the U.S. are on the verge of bankruptcy as of today. And this was big. It was 75 cities that are required by law to have balanced budgets, meaning, their debt has to work with the claims against them. And the problem here is that elected officials and government agencies aren't calculating the balance sheets the right way. And this is how many of them are kind of going undetected, but it's still a thing. Now, with back to respect with Puerto Rico, yeah, Puerto Rico came out of bankruptcy a couple of years ago in 2022, and they came up with a deal, like 80% deal, where, like most bankruptcy deals, where they were able to get out of it that way. But they're not out of the dark in any way, and this is why I said I'd look at a place there, but it doesn't seem great. Now they've got a lot of different incentives going on right now for people to move in, and in particular, if which things I don't. There's a lot of rules in Puerto Rico that to me don't make a lot of sense that are imposed by some old rules here, like the Johnson Act, the Jones Act, excuse me, and the this latest rule. I forget the number for it. It's like one of those propositions with a number behind it, but it allows investors from anywhere that are not from Puerto Rico to get these incredible tax breaks and to buy property. So they're bringing in a lot of external investors to live there or rent it out, Airbnb, whatever you want to do with it. And obviously that affects the people that are there because they're not able to capitalize off of those same benefits. So I think between the bankruptcy, and it's not so much the bankruptcy or the oversight board that was put into place, to me, all of that is a hustle. The whole thing was a hustle, a way to move money around, a way for people that are in the ruling class to stay in the ruling class. And lamentably, that's what they did. So, I mean, they kind of cut themselves in on the deal where they do what they do. And, I mean, it's for me, there's these quote-unquote experts in place. But are they really experts? These are the same people that oversaw how they got into bankruptcy. Then you've got these are the same people who allowed the island's main energy company to fail them. So they get rid of that company and they go with another company who fails them as well. And they're back in the same exact spot they were. And this is, again, after millions and billions of dollars are being spent on what people think is better. So, yes, you're right. When you say this is coming to a theater near you, I think you're right. We're going to see it in a lot of places if we go the same route of spend, tax, and there's no real upside because they're spending more than they're bringing in, and the government doesn't create anything, right? They don't sell any widgets. They just take your money. Everything is a tax dollar-funded expense. So, ultimately, as long as we have these types of scenarios where we spend more than we're able to ever generate, we're going to be screwed. And I think we're seeing that in Puerto Rico. Now, again, if you're looking at like San Juan, I think it's more expensive in San Juan than it might be on Miami Beach for sure. But you go a little further out, you get all the same island benefits, the view, this and that. And you could probably get, a 2 or 3 bedroom place for $300K in Puerto Rico. But, a drive away from, things that are of import, you're probably more than half an hour away from the airport, that type of thing. So not necessarily where I'd want to be for my primary dwelling, right? Maybe a vacation home or something like that, but definitely not the main place. So those are my thoughts, but I agree with you, your main point. Yes, there's a lot of cities that are looking at bankruptcy, and the United States as a whole, right? I mean, you look at what the national debt was 40 years ago, and you look at what it is today and the way it's grown and the speed at which it's grown and how we weren't able to get out of it then. How do you think we're going to get out of it now? We don't, right? There isn't a scenario where we actually are ever debt-free. And I think that's a problem. I think it's a serious problem and one we have to address. Anyway, folks, we're going to continue with your calls and more. We're going to talk about why the working class is supporting Trump. He's got sneakers that are out there. They're selling for $3.99, another pair for $1.99, and they're on eBay now, ranging from anywhere from $500 to like $9,000. I think one buyer actually paid $75,000 for a pair of these golden-colored Trump sneakers. Crazy, just absolutely crazy. But God bless him, right? Everybody wants a pair. I want a pair, and I would never wear gold sneakers, but I do want a pair just because they're limited edition. Why not get a pair? This is like a cool part of history. So we're going to talk about that and everything else we've talked about tonight. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. The topic of the night, you pick it. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Sarah. Sarah's calling us from Bedford, Indiana on WBIW. Sarah, go right ahead.
Well, I can tell you one reason, big reason why poor people and working class people vote for Republicans is because crime. Let's just take that issue. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and, it's a Democrat city. Yeah, and it's the crime was bad, and just to have a decent place to live, you had to pay out the nose for rent. And then my mom sent us to private school because the local public schools were dangerous. But I just saw how much money she spent just trying to keep us basically safe. And I live here in Bedford, and it's, a small town, conservative area, and I can walk home after midnight and not get accosted. So I can say as a working class person, I can tell you why I like living in a conservative community.
Right. Makes sense. It's safer. And, and I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of people, working class people, that even, people that are of all income areas, honestly, I think that they want to live in safe communities. They want to have the best schools available to their children. They want to have a community they can be proud of. And sadly, they just don't get one when these cities aren't run appropriately, right? When you have mayors like Eric Adams, who he really, the other day, I've heard him pat himself on the back many times, but the other day I heard him patting himself on the back. And I thought to myself, my goodness, this guy is all about himself, right? He's literally all about himself and really saying, we're doing a great job. We're doing a great job. How could anyone say we're doing a great job? In my lifetime, I've never met more people that are lifelong Democrats that are telling me they're voting for Trump, they're voting for whatever. They want to move out of New York City because they think that this place is a hellhole. So why on earth would Eric Adams, pat himself on the back and say he's doing such a tremendous job when people are hemorrhaging from New York, going to places like South Florida and other places? It is really remarkable, and it's quite honestly, it's beyond my comprehension. But I think you're right, Sarah. There's a lot of people in the working class that are ultimately always going to favor the small government conservative candidate because they feel like they have more of themselves and less influence from the government, which means, less of your tax dollars being taken from you to control you and to control what you want to do. So I think it's better when you control the tax dollar, not when the tax dollar controls you. Sarah, thank you for your call, and I appreciate it. And, folks, we take a quick pause here, and then we come back to more calls and your thoughts. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
We have to realize what we're dealing with Putin. All of us should reject the dangerous statements made by the previous president that invited Russia to invade our NATO allies if they weren't paying up. He said if an ally did not pay their dues, he'd encourage Russia to, quote, do whatever the hell they want.
That's President Biden criticizing President Trump on his approach to NATO. And I think that we've seen the approach that Biden's taken, and it's costing us a fortune. It's not working. I think Trump was a lot more successful there. Let's see. What do we do? Let's go to our friend Paulie calling from Boise, Idaho, listening online. Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com. Go ahead.
Evening, Rich. Yeah, they've got their work cut out for them over in Ukraine right now. They don't have the backup that they need, and they need our help. But we've got to do it the way we got to do it by law, is to give them the help that they need. And it's going to take a little while to get it to them. And the Russians are on the offensive, and they're trying to break through the line. And without the aerial assault that we would need, we can't go very much further. The Ukrainians can't, and it's causing some issues. And you have to follow the laws and the rules of NATO.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you're part of NATO, you got to follow the rules of NATO. The question is that Russia doesn't follow any rules, and they do what they want. And then somehow they become sympathetic to some of the people in the United States, where they're like, well, they're Russia, they're great. They don't have any BLM there. They don't have any transgenders there. And Putin says bad things about those things, and he makes fun of Biden. And we like Putin. I don't like Putin. I don't like what he's doing anywhere. Anybody who kills their opponents and then comes out and says, "Look, my deepest condolences. This person made bad decisions. He's made bad decisions. He's lived bad life. I wish him the best." Right? That's Putin. That's how he rolls every time. Here, Putin has beef with so and so. So and so's now dead. Putin, I'm very sorry. They've made bad choices. I just don't buy it. I'm not in bed with Putin. I'm not a pro-Putin patriot. Although I know there's a bunch of them out there. And good for them. Hopefully they're right and I'm wrong. But until then, I know I'm not doing it. So I think your point is taken. The bottom line is we're not doing anything. Joe Biden's not doing anything. And we probably ought to, in order to, and I'm not saying we should go to war. I'm just saying we need to take action. And taking action is important. And in Putin's recent interview that he did with Tucker Carlson, he said that he preferred if Biden were reelected. So go figure. Anyway, thank you, Paul. Let's go to Charleston, South Carolina, and check in with Bobby very quickly. Go right ahead. WCHS.
Yeah, we're in Charleston, West Virginia, actually, there, Rich.
Oh, sorry, West Virginia. Forgive me.
That's perfectly okay. I understand. You nailed it on the head. We should not borrow money from the Federal Reserve, because once we borrow that money, it turns into reserves, and that creates 9 times more dollars. In other words, when we borrow $95 billion, we create $855 billion for the central bank.
Yep, and that creates inflation, and that will destroy us. Scott, big shout out to you on WTMA America. Take care, good night, and God bless. I'm Rich Valdez.